The screen fades to black. Silence. Then, the lights are off. Adam Pearce is standing in the middle of that ring with tears streaming down his face, and what he's about to say will shatter everything you thought you knew about Monday Night Raw. 385 pounds of absolute dominance, a man who survived wars in the ring, who crushed opponents under his weight, who made grown men fear that tsunami, gone, not from a finishing move, not from a legendary battle, but from something far more sinister, something that happened in the shadows while we were all watching the show unfold. Bronson Reed, the most destructive force in WWE today, may have just wrestled his final match, and the person responsible is still walking free in that building right now. You need to see this. You need to hear every single word of what happened, because this isn't just another storyline, this isn't just another angle for ratings. This is the moment that changed everything. This is the night that WWE stopped being entertainment and became something darker, something we've never witnessed before. And I promise you, by the time we reach the end of this video, you're going to understand why every single superstar backstage is looking over their shoulder right now. Before we dive into the chaos, into the horror of what transpired tonight, I need you to do something for me. I need you to become part of the SLAMZONE family, because we're living through history right now, and you deserve to be here for every second of it. Hit that subscribe button, smash that notification bell, because when news breaks in the wrestling world, when something this massive happens, you need to be the first to know. We're not just a channel, we're a community of people who live and breathe this business, who understand that what happens between those ropes matters. So join us. Be part of something bigger. And let's walk through this nightmare together. The show started like any other Monday night. The crowd was electric, the energy in the arena was palpable, you could feel it through your screen. Bronson Reed had just come off one of the most vicious attacks in recent memory last week, standing tall over multiple superstars, asserting his dominance like the unstoppable monster he's become. The man is a human wrecking ball, every step he takes makes the ring shake, every move he executes leaves his opponents broken and gasping for air. When Bronson Reed enters that arena, destruction follows. It's not a question of if he'll destroy someone, it's a question of how many bodies he'll leave in his wake. But tonight was different. Something felt off from the moment the show began. There was a tension in the air, an unease that veteran fans could sense but couldn't quite place. The commentators seemed distracted, the camera work felt hurried, and then it happened. The show cut to backstage. No warning, no transition, just a sudden jarring shift that made your heart drop into your stomach. There he was, Bronson Reed, 385 pounds of pure power, lying motionless on the cold concrete floor of the backstage area. His massive frame crumpled in a way that didn't seem possible, like a redwood tree that had been felled by some invisible force. Medical staff were swarming around him, their faces painted with panic and horror. You could see it in their eyes, that look of helplessness, that realization that they were dealing with something beyond a simple injury. This wasn't a worked angle. This wasn't a scripted beatdown that would lead to a revenge storyline in 3 weeks. This was real. This was terrifying. The cameras captured everything in those agonizing moments. Referees running toward the scene. Producers shouting into their headsets. Superstars emerging from their locker rooms, their faces twisted in shock and disbelief. Drew McIntyre stood frozen in the hallway. The Miz backed away slowly, his usual bravado completely shattered. Even the toughest competitors in that building, men and women who have endured ladder matches, steel cage battles, and career-threatening injuries, they all stopped. They all stared. Because when a man like Bronson Reed, a man who seems indestructible, lies motionless on the ground, you realize that nobody is safe. The feed cut back to the arena, and that's when Adam Pearce made his way to the ring. You've seen Pearce before. He's the authority figure, the man who makes the matches, who keeps order when chaos threatens to consume the show. But tonight, Adam Pearce wasn't playing a character. Tonight, he was a man bearing the weight of the worst news imaginable. His walk to the ring felt like it took an eternity. Every step was heavy, burdened with the knowledge of what he had to say. The crowd sensed it immediately. The cheers died down. The chants stopped. 30,000 people fell silent, holding their breath, waiting for words they didn't want to hear. Pearce climbed into the ring, microphone shaking in his hand. He didn't do his usual introduction. He didn't play to the crowd or acknowledge their energy. He just stood there for a moment, his eyes red, his jaw clenched, fighting back emotions that no script could replicate. And then he spoke. His voice cracked as he said Bronson Reed's name. He paused, gathering the strength to continue, and in that pause, you could hear the collective gasp of the audience. Some people started crying before he even finished the sentence. They knew. We all knew. Adam Pearce announced that Bronson Reed had been attacked. Not just attacked, brutalized. Left for dead in a backstage assault so vicious, so calculated, that medical personnel feared for his life. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Bronson Reed, the man who splashed through announce tables, who crushed opponents under his massive frame, who seemed genuinely unstoppable, had been taken out by an unknown assailant. Someone in that building, someone with access to the backstage area, had targeted one of the most dangerous men in professional wrestling and left him broken. The implications are staggering. Think about what this means. Bronson Reed wasn't just some mid-card talent caught off guard. He's a man who has dominated everyone put in front of him. He's taken on multiple opponents simultaneously and emerged victorious. He's the kind of competitor who makes legends think twice about stepping into the ring with him. And someone took him down without the world watching, without the cameras catching the assault, without anyone seeing who was responsible. That level of calculation, that kind of stealth attack, it speaks to something far more sinister than a simple grudge match. Who in that locker room has the capability to do this? Who possesses the strength to take down a man of Bronson Reed's size and power? More importantly, who has the ruthlessness to do it in the shadows, to strike when no one was looking? The list of suspects is terrifyingly long, but it's also impossibly short. Because this wasn't just an attack, this was an assassination attempt on a man's career, possibly on his life. Think about his recent rivalries. Bronson Reed has made enemies of everyone. He's crushed the dreams of rising stars who thought they could make a name by defeating him. He's brutalized veterans who believed their experience would save them. He's inserted himself into main event storylines without asking permission, taking what he believes is rightfully his through sheer force. Every single person he's crossed has a motive. But do they have the means? Do they have the stones to actually go through with something this brutal? The crowd in that arena was shell-shocked. You could see fans with their hands over their mouths, tears streaming down their faces. Wrestling fans are passionate. We invest emotionally in these performers. We follow their journeys from independent shows to the biggest stage in the world. Bronson Reed's journey has been one of perseverance and power. He's worked his entire life to reach this level, to perform in front of millions, to showcase his abilities on the grandest platform. And in one vicious moment, someone tried to take it all away from him. Adam Pearce struggled to continue. He explained that the investigation was ongoing, that security footage was being reviewed, that everyone backstage was being questioned. But his words offered no comfort. Because the truth is, in that moment, nobody knew anything. The attacker could be anyone. They could be standing in that ring. They could be watching from backstage. They could be sitting in the crowd, blending in with the shocked masses, reveling in the chaos they've created. That uncertainty, that fear of the unknown, it's paralyzing. The medical update was grim. Pearce didn't go into graphic details. He's not that kind of person, but you could read between the lines. Bronson Reed was in critical condition. The injuries sustained were severe enough that his career was in jeopardy. Think about that for a second. A man who has built his entire identity around being unbreakable, around being the most destructive force in professional wrestling, might never step foot in a ring again. Not because he lost a match. Not because he wasn't good enough. But because someone decided to end his career through an act of cowardice. Right now, I need you to do something. I need you to hit that like button if you're as shocked and heartbroken as I am about what happened to Bronson Reed. Share this video with every wrestling fan you know because this story needs to be told, the truth needs to come out, and together we can demand answers. Subscribe to SLAMZONE and turn on those notifications so you don't miss a single update as this story develops. Because I promise you, this is just the beginning. The person who did this, they're going to reveal themselves. They're going to make a mistake. And when they do, we'll be here to break it down for you. The theories started immediately after the announcement. Social media exploded with speculation. Was it someone from Reed's past? A rival from his NXT days who never got their revenge? Could it be a current superstar who saw Reed as a threat to their position on the card? The possibilities are endless, and that's what makes this so terrifying. Anyone could be responsible. The person you least suspect could be the monster who nearly ended Bronson Reed's life. Some fans are pointing fingers at obvious suspects. Seth Rollins has had heated exchanges with Reed in recent weeks. The intensity between them was real, the animosity palpable. Could Rollins have taken things too far? Has the architect become so consumed with protecting his legacy that he'd resort to this level of violence? Then there's the entire roster of superstars who Reed has terrorized over the past months. How many men and women has he left broken in that ring? How many careers has he threatened? The list is long, and every name on it had a reason to want Reed out of the picture. But here's where it gets even more disturbing. What if this wasn't about revenge at all? What if this was about opportunity? Bronson Reed was positioned for a major push. He was on the verge of breaking into the main event scene, of competing for championships, of reaching the pinnacle of the industry. What if someone saw him as an obstacle to their own success? What if a fellow superstar, someone hungry for that top spot, decided the only way to advance was to eliminate the competition? It's a dark thought, but in an industry as competitive as professional wrestling, where careers are made and broken in an instant, it's not impossible. The emotional toll this takes on everyone involved cannot be overstated. Bronson Reed has a family. He has people who love him, who depend on him, who watch him perform and fear for his safety every single time he climbs through those ropes. They live with the knowledge that wrestling is dangerous, that injuries happen, that the risks are real, but they trust that the system is in place to protect these performers, that safety measures exist, that backstage areas are secure. Tonight, that trust was shattered. If Bronson Reed isn't safe, if a man of his size and strength can be taken down so easily, then nobody is safe. Think about the younger superstars in that locker room, the rookies who just got called up from developmental, the men and women who are living their dreams of performing in WWE. They watched this unfold tonight, and they have to be asking themselves if it's worth it. If the danger extends beyond the ring, if they can't even feel secure in their own locker room, then what's the point? Wrestling is supposed to be controlled chaos, carefully choreographed violence that tells a story. But this wasn't part of any story. This was real violence with real consequences. Adam Pearce ended his announcement with a plea. He asked the WWE Universe to keep Bronson Reed in their thoughts, to send positive energy his way as he fights through this unimaginable situation. He promised that whoever was responsible would be found and would face the consequences of their actions. But his words felt hollow in that moment, not because he didn't mean them, but because the damage was already done. Bronson Reed was lying in a medical facility somewhere, his future uncertain, his career hanging by a thread, and all the words in the world couldn't change that reality. The show tried to continue. Other matches were scheduled, other storylines needed to progress. But the energy was different. The performers seemed distracted, their movements less confident, their promos lacking the usual intensity. How do you go out there and pretend to fight, pretend to hate each other, when real violence just occurred steps away from where you're standing? How do you execute a dramatic near fall when a real person is fighting for their career, possibly for their life? The line between performance and reality became impossibly blurred tonight. As the night wore on, more details began to emerge. Witnesses reported hearing a commotion backstage approximately 20 minutes before Bronson Reed was discovered. Security footage showed several superstars in the area around the time of the attack, but the actual assault occurred in a blind spot, a section of the backstage area not covered by cameras. That level of knowledge, knowing exactly where the cameras couldn't see, suggests this was premeditated. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment altercation that got out of hand. This was planned, calculated, executed with precision by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The weapon used remains unconfirmed, but sources indicate it was something heavy, something capable of inflicting serious damage even on a man of Bronson Reed's durability. Speculation ranges from a steel chair to production equipment to something more sinister brought into the arena specifically for this purpose. Whatever it was effective. Too effective. And the fact that the attacker was able to leave the scene without being identified, without being stopped, without leaving obvious evidence behind, it speaks to a level of professionalism that's genuinely frightening. Veteran wrestlers have been quick to offer their support and share their shock on social media. These are men and women who have seen it all, who have experienced the worst the industry has to offer, who thought they were immune to being surprised by anything. But this surprised them. This shook them to their core. Because unwritten rules exist in professional wrestling. You settle your differences in the ring. You don't attack someone when they're vulnerable. You don't cross certain lines. Whoever attacked Bronson Reed didn't just break those rules, they shattered them into a million pieces. The investigation is ongoing, and everyone associated with WWE is cooperating fully. Superstars are being interviewed, alibis are being checked, every second of footage from tonight is being scrutinized for clues. But the truth is, solving this might take time. And in the meantime, the entire roster exists in a state of fear and suspicion. Nobody knows who to trust. The person sitting next to you in catering could be the monster who did this. Your tag team partner could be hiding a dark secret. The friend you've traveled with for years could be capable of unimaginable violence. This brings me to the most important question of all: what happens now? Assuming Bronson Reed survives this attack, assuming he's able to return to action at some point in the future, how does he move forward? How do you step back into an environment where someone wanted you dead? How do you trust the people around you when one of them tried to end your career? The psychological damage from something like this could be even more devastating than the physical injuries. Reed will heal from broken bones, from concussions, from whatever wounds were inflicted upon him tonight. But healing from betrayal, from targeted violence, from the knowledge that someone hates you enough to do this? That might be impossible. And what about the locker room culture moving forward? WWE has always promoted itself as a family, as a group of performers who compete in the ring but respect each other outside of it. Tonight proved that's not always true. Tonight revealed that darkness exists within that family, that not everyone can be trusted, that the bonds we thought were unbreakable are actually incredibly fragile. Management is going to have to make serious changes to security protocols, to backstage access, to how they protect their performers. Because if this can happen to Bronson Reed, it can happen to anyone. The fans in attendance tonight left that arena changed. They came for entertainment, for an escape from their everyday lives, for the chance to watch larger-than-life personalities engage in athletic storytelling. Instead, they witnessed something that will haunt them forever. They saw a man's career potentially end through an act of senseless violence. They felt the fear and uncertainty that permeated that building. They became part of a story nobody wanted to tell. But here's the thing about the wrestling community: we're resilient. We support our own. The outpouring of love and support for Bronson Reed since this announcement has been overwhelming. Fans from around the world are sending messages of encouragement, sharing their favorite Reed moments, refusing to let his legacy be defined by this tragedy. That's beautiful. That's what makes this community special. We stand together even when everything is falling apart around us. Before we get to what I believe comes next, I need to ask you one more time: if you're not already subscribed to SLAMZONE, now is the time. This story is going to develop rapidly over the coming days and weeks. New information will emerge. The attacker will eventually be revealed. Justice will be served. And you deserve to be here for all of it. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join a community of wrestling fans who care deeply about these performers and the stories they tell. We're in this together, and together we'll see this through to the end. The mastermind behind this attack made a critical error. They acted out of darkness, out of cowardice, believing they could hide in the shadows forever. But light always exposes darkness eventually. The truth has a way of revealing itself, no matter how hard someone tries to bury it. And when that truth comes out, when we finally learn who was responsible for what happened to Bronson Reed, the entire wrestling world will demand accountability. This isn't over. This is just beginning. Bronson Reed's story was supposed to be one of triumph. A big man who defied expectations, who proved that size and agility could coexist, who showed the world what dedication and passion look like. That story isn't finished. It can't be finished like this. Reed will fight through this adversity like he's fought through everything else in his career. He'll recover. He'll return. And when he does, the person responsible for this attack better be ready, because the tsunami is coming, and nothing will stop it. This is SLAMZONE, and we'll be here every step of the way, covering every development, analyzing every clue, demanding justice for Bronson Reed. Hit that like button if you stand with Reed. Share this video to spread awareness. Comment below with your theories about who you think is responsible. And most importantly, keep coming back, because this story is far from over. The person who attacked Bronson Reed wanted to end his career, but they might have just created a legend. We'll see you in the next one. Stay strong, SLAMZONE family.